Hello today. It is the final day of the first round robin. No birds here though. It's going to be an absolute mad one today. Day 7, we're coming through today. Let's get hyped, guys. This is the last round robin. This is the one that you want to watch. This is where teams are trying to finish off strong. They want to be in the top side of this table. They want to prove they can beat over half of the league. But we'll see if they can do it. I'm J Robbie, your host. I'm joined by Middlecott and RMC. How are you guys doing today?
Mate, I am hyped. We've got some really exciting matchups today, some games that are going to be very indicative of the strength of these teams going into that second round robin. And yeah, like you already mentioned, this is the final time that we're having this round robin here. So we're going to see all the teams having played against each other and can really start to get some accurate estimations of where these teams are going to be ending up in a month or so's time.
For sure. And our first game as well here, J-Real. That's an exciting one. We're talking about, close games. We've got a tie for 6th, and we've got Crest Gaming Act and AXIZ both sitting at 6th here. And you're talking about, which are top table, which are bottom table teams. Playoffs are top 6 teams here, J-Real. So the loser of this one, yeah, sure, it's only the first third of the season, but it's a really rough start to be bottom 2 after the first third.
Yeah, it's definitely not what you want to be seeing. Obviously, we've seen some crazy miracle runs in the last split of the spring, where some teams did just pick up the pace. They went through and won a lot of games in the second and third round robin. But, as Middlecott said, this is where we really get to see how you do in those head-to-heads against these teams. And we are kicking it off with CGA versus AXIZ, which obviously, I don't know if this has just been scheduling. Maybe like the powers above are just trolling you, RMC, but they keep putting you next to the casters that are big fans of the team your team is playing against. Obviously, it's CGA Middlecott they're coming through, and it's going to be RMC on the side of AXIZ. I'm going to kick it off. Before we even start to talk about the teams, let's get into the predictions. Middlecott, why have you chosen CGA to win today?
I imagine for a fairly similar reason that my co-caster has. I think that whilst these teams are both 6 in the standings, whilst they are both 2 and 4, if I'm looking just lane by lane, I think the CGA have a little bit of an edge just in terms of the quality of their players, and I don't think the teamwork that we've been seeing from AXIZ is enough to overcome that. So my prediction, CGA taking this game.
Yeah, fair enough. And RMC, is it a very similar vibe from you, or do you maybe have some other question marks on AXIZ or some potential big wins for CGA?
I have all the question marks on AXIZ right now, Jerry. You know what? You pointed out that, I've been casting alongside co-casters who, have been supporting the other team. And I'm glad that that's the case, because at least somebody's walking away happy from those games. Because I have not been happy watching AXIZ's games. And unfortunately, I've kind of lost faith a little bit with how they've been playing. Hence all the question marks here. I called AXIZ Crest Gaming light at the beginning of the season, and that has been unfortunately true. So when you're actually playing up against the original Crest Gaming right now, it's hard for me to vote AXIZ. Like Middlecott said, it just feels like Crest is better in every role, and they play kind of similar, with the exception of the top lane, where I feel like Nap's been growing into that carry role, whereas Yellow Yoshi has still been stuck just playing tanks. And unfortunately for Yellow Yoshi, his tanks have looked more like, ex-Smithy Sejuani than, better top lane Sejuani's right now. He's been missing a lot of those skill shots. So yeah, unless AXIZ really step it up right now, it's kind of got to give it to Crest right now.
Yeah, and well, they have a very similar pattern of wins and losses in the split. Right now, they have both beaten V3, and they have both, CGA has beaten Burning Core, AXIZ have beaten Russell Jesters. But V3 have not been having the greatest time. We're not going to talk about them too long, but both of these teams had some pretty close games, to be fair. V3 has almost won 2 games this split, and it was against these 2 teams. Obviously, there could be a lot of things that have changed, but neither of these teams have won in the last 3 days. It's been 4 days since AXIZ last won, 3 days. Ganked by Hay Fever. It's been 4 days since AXIZ have won, and it's been 3 days since CGA have won. And to be fair, consistency has definitely been something they've both shared in the sense of they have none. I feel like their teams have kind of had really good games against some teams that I didn't expect, but they've also performed really badly today. Middlecott, hold on, I'm going to get ganked from Hay Fever again. I can feel it.
This is disturbing. Like twice in 1 minute, man.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like nerf.
Right back.
Someone needs to nerf Hay Fever. That's all I'm saying. But basically, What do you think CGA can do, middle court, to actually stabilize their performances a little bit more and actually be a little bit more consistent in these games?
So I think we've really seen two CGAs this split. We've seen CGA when they're picking stuff like the Kaiser and the Wukong, and they're able to play proactively through Kassin, through hybrid in the bottom side of the map. And then you've got the CGA, which is picking stuff like the Ezreal and Aphelios for hybrid, and they're much more focused around the top sort of quadrant, making sure that Nap isn't able to carry. Spoiler alert, when they play towards hybrid, they win. When they play towards Nap, they lose. Currently 2 and 4. So not looking great, but I think what this team is trying to do is get a secondary carry, because that's been one of the issues that CGA has had for a long time. One absolutely cracked member of the team, and then everyone else not really able to support them. So I think CGA in this game, what I want to see is some more growth towards that more top lane focus style, if they want to be improving that, or if they just want to take the win, put hybrid on something he's comfortable on, and gank bot 24/7.
Yeah, and I definitely think that there's some kind of difficulties with the playing to the top side, because I feel like Nap started off with the Olaf pick. And I feel like it was a really cool pick. It was a really interesting pick. It performed super well. He had some awesome gameplay. There was like that 1v3 under tower play that he was able to pull off really early on. I think it was against Burning Core. But it has been banned against them 50% of their games. So he got to play it, I believe, twice.
Yep.
And then he's basically not been allowed to play it since. Which, to be fair, it's looked pretty good. So without the Olaf, do you feel like there's maybe not as much room for Nap to carry RMC?
Well, it's worth also noting that all the Olaf bans have been when CGA is on red side. So teams are specifically banning it, knowing that it's a counter pick into tanks here. That said, I think we saw the Camille, the Gwen, the Lilia. I think Nap has other champions that he can play if he wants to be that carry. I think it goes back more to what Middlecott was pointing out, where CG as a whole feel like they want to be a bit more proactive, and when you can get hybrid proactive on the Kai'Sa and play through that instead, I think it's a lot more. It looks a lot better for them compared to putting hybrid on something that just scales, and then you play the Nap. It's less on Nap, I think, and more just on the way the bot lane works for CGA in that scenario.
And obviously, hybrid has been a top performer. We talked about, we can always think about that Ezreal game where he dropped 78,000 damage, which is just an absolute ridiculous number of damage to not win the game from.
Yeah.
Like, it's absolutely crazy. Definitely has been a star performer, and obviously it's something we talked about a lot in Spring Split about how good hybrid is. But moving on to AXIZ. RMC, I'm going to ask you a very similar question to I asked Middlecott. The fact that they have been inconsistent has definitely been holding them back. But what do you feel could change their fate and make them that more consistent style?
I would argue AXIZ has been really consistent, and that's kind of the problem, because they're consistently not performing. They've been playing kind of similar to CGA, like we said, they're kind of CGA light. They've been playing towards that bot side, Sangshu as the big carry. I think Sangshu's been doing fine for the most part. My problem comes in the mid lane. Like you had alluded to early on, Jerio, Megumin, first 2 games, really good. And then from then, kind of fell off. And that is the problem. It's not like they aren't doing the same thing. They've been giving Megumin later picks, been picking up those scaling carries. It's just Megumin's not been able to convert those scaling carries into actual team fight wins. And I think that's the problem. That's what needs to change here. If that's your playstyle and you've identified it that way, then Megumin needs to step up. Otherwise, put Megumin on something, more utility-based, like what we saw back in spring, and then maybe try and carry through Swamp instead, who has shown that he's got some carry potential, especially on that Viego pick. Even on the Lilia game, I did quite like how much damage or how much proactiveness Swamp really had in a lot of those fights.
Yeah, I think the Megumin has definitely been performing a bit better than I think we expected coming into this season. I think the AXIZ were looking really strong. I also quite like the Yone, to be fair. I think that when he played the Yone, I can't remember exactly who it was against. I feel like it was against DFM, right? It was a tough match. I feel like it was a situation where they were put in a bad situation. I remember they were down about 4 Drakes in like 23 minutes. I do believe it was DFM last game day. And it's just a situation where you're kind of in a tough scenario that basically means that you're not going to be able to pick up the win. Now, hopefully I'm remembering the right game, and hopefully it was the right Yone, but all in all, I do think that Megumin has been playing a lot better. I will say the Lissandra game is a standout of that's not what to do for AXIZ. I think the Lissandra was a big mistake, and I do think they should be trying to play more around Megumin, picking up the carry. Middlecourt, Are you of a similar feeling? Obviously, two teams playing very similar way. If it is going to be both about bot lane focus, are you expecting the junglers to play to those sides?
I think you absolutely have to, especially if you are AXIZ, where Sanctuary really is the carry for you, at least based on current form. We've already touched on how CGA have got Nap around the top side. I think Kassim, when he gets snowballing on bruises, can also do a lot of the legwork, at least until the mid game. But I think, yeah, for AXIZ, the focus has to be in that bot lane. Give Sanctu a priority matchup, something that he's going to snowball well on. I'd love to see the Zeri. We're probably not going to be able to see the Zeri. It's going to be hitting the ban table, but something else that he's got the freedom to carry on and AXIZ are able to set up for.
Yeah, indeed. It's definitely a tough one. By the way, I did fact check. It was against the Hawks that they played Yone, just to confirm it wasn't into the Corki, just to make sure that we're all clear on the facts. But yeah, it definitely feels like playing to that bot side. Big win carry, get your bot lane ahead, basically put up those stacks, basically try and get the wing additions. Also, both these ADCs though, they have picks, you know, and I wouldn't say they necessarily play the same picks, but one that they do both like is Ezreal. Do we potentially see this being banned away, RMC, or do you feel like it's going to be a B1 priority pick?
Well, like Middleclots pointed out, Hybrid hasn't won with the Ezreal just yet.
He's done good damage, but he hasn't won.
Yeah, true, he has. And I don't think CGA want to ban it, because one of the counters to Ezreal is Kai'Sa, right? The ability to go in there with that kill instinct, hunt him down after the arcane shift. So if anything, I want to see CGA leave it open here. Let AXIZ pick it. Pick that Kai'Sa yourself here. And for AXIZ, part of me feels like you've got bigger worries than that Ezreal necessarily. I mean, you can always match the Ezreal with the Jinx, with the Zeri. Those are picks that we've seen Sanctuary pick up before. So I kind of actually don't really want to see AD carry bans focus come through. If anything, if AXIZ are going to ban an AD carry, ban that Kai'Sa instead.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Now, I want to go back a little bit more into the jungle. You know, it's obviously an important role right now. And I will say that Kassim was a big standout for CGA last split. Yeah. It hasn't felt like we've got the same Kassim performances this split. Maybe I'm being unfair, but that's just how I personally have felt. But also Swamp, I feel like has also like kind of been in the shadows. Are you guys expecting maybe some switches? Do you feel like maybe the champions they're playing aren't favouring their styles? Or what would be your explanations for these two junglers? I'm going to give you guys a jungler each, so Middlecourt, you can kick us off with CGA's junglers Kassim there.
I think it's difficult to say if it's the picks which are hampering Kassim or just CJ's lack of early game proactivity. Obviously, a lot of that is going to come through the jungle, and we're not in a meta where you can just slam something like the Xin Zhao or the Jarvan freely. So in terms of early game ganking, there's a lot less potential for that. Stuff like the Volibear is still available. I'm surprised that we haven't seen Kassim opt towards that one. So I think if we're talking about jungle pulls, I think maybe index a little bit more into the early game from Kassim, but I think CJ's issues are a little bit broader.
And then for you, RMC, Swamp, where would you kind of pin down his performance issues? Or actually, hold on one second. We are about to go into draft, so we do not have time for that. We'll see what they do decide to lock in. So far, CJ have already banned away Poppy, but let's get into the first game. Middlecourt RMC, take us into this one.
Hey, thank you very much, JReal. Excited to be here in Champion Select for the first day, well, the first game, final day of this first round robin. CJ here on the blue side, AXIZ on the red. A couple of AD carry bans coming through from our red side team here.
And Middlecloud had said that I didn't want to see too many AD carry bans. I forgot that, you know what? Yes, we are focused very heavily on scaling picks for Hybrid, but there are other early game picks. I think Lucian and Kalista. It makes sense, right? It goes with that sort of Kai'Sa thing we're saying. Try and make sure that Hybrid doesn't get that early game champion. That's it. I would love to see a Wukong ban. I think Wukong's just too strong right now. 100% presence with an 82% win rate on Kassim, and you were mentioning to me as well that Kassim's wins have come off, or CGA's wins have come off Kassim playing Wukong.
Yeah, it just gives him a lot more proactivity in the mid game, and I'm so happy to see CGA slam this. This does mean that AXIZ can respond with maybe something like the Viego. We've seen Swamp default towards that a lot of time, and then an AD carry pickup potentially.
Yeah, and that to me is a little bit of a problem, because we didn't get to talk too much about Swamp here, and I think Swamp for AXIZ has done perfectly fine. He's been very, very solid for the team, but he's not the big standout player so far to carry. Oh my goodness, Middlecott, our first Bel'Veth game of the LJL. And you know what? I had said this last day on day 6 that if there was going to be a carry for Swamp to pick up, if you're not going to let Mega Man carry because he's not seeming to be able to pop off, then Swamp's got to default to that. And I love the fact that they pick Belveth because Belveth is a jungle that can carry if set up properly.
Oh, and speaking about carries, the Jinx as well here for Sanctuary. AXZ have locked in possibly 2 of the highest damage champions for 2 of the players that we really need to see step up for this team and provide a strong carry threat for them. A lot of scaling though, so if CGA are able to draw something that can threaten AXZ in the early game, it could be in a bit of a pickle.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're not going to see something like that Kaisa early to try and punish that Jinx here. They've gone with some scaling of their own. CGA don't want to put all their eggs into one basket here. They want to make sure they've got a pretty good spread to be able to match the scaling that AXZ will have. And for AXZ here, middle court, once you've got this much damage, once you've got this much safety and scaling insurance here, you need to start setting up around them. And I mean, we're probably going to see a tank from Yellow Yoshi. I'm not surprised there.
Yeah.
Enchanter would be great for the bot side. I had, said that Ozuka hasn't looked amazing on these engaged tanks, and Enchanter meta is really, really solid. My big question marks around Mega Man, because we've seen Mega Man on scaling picks with the Jinx, with the Belveth here. I'd like to see picks that would have a lot more pressure early on. Something like a Syndra here, or even if you want to go something supportive, Galio, Oriana, Lulu, those are all options that we've seen Mega Man play before in Split 1 or Spring Split.
Hey, how about Renekton mid? RMC.
I honestly wouldn't hate it. Well, I wouldn't like it too much because then you're very heavy on the physical damage and you probably need some magic damage to come out. But other than that, honestly, I don't hate it. That would work for them because it would give them that early push and prio.
You want something that is just going to stand in this mid lane, and Kaito's not going to be able to push against you. And I mean, that should be a relatively undaunting task for Mega Man, because Kaito, I think, one of these mid laners that has struggled ever since they've come into the LJL. AXZ banning away a lot of these top lane champions. That Olaf and Gwen remove. We talked on the desk about Nat potentially being a carry for CGA, and they're going to have to default to something a little bit lower down the priority table.
Yeah, I mean, there is still the Lilia, the Camille to come through, and I feel like a lot of this is set up because Yellow Yoshi kind of is likely to pick tanks. Besides the Tryndamere, which we do see banned here, the only non-tank Yellow Yoshi has played the split has been that Gnar, and you could argue Gnar is half a tank here. Honestly, I think Ornn would be a perfectly fine pickup here to set up for Sangshu, but also I just want something with high CC to set up Swamp with that Belveth. Gnar doesn't bring that sort of CC. It's very conditional here, so a little bit risky coming through from AXZ.
Yeah, it's sort of the nature of the Gnar pick. It does a lot of stuff okay, but like you mentioned, not really something like the Malphite, which just has that huge go button to go in. Talking about carry Nap, the Gangplank locked in for Crest Gaming Axe top laner means they're going to be blinding this mid lane. Kaito has played this Ahri a couple times before, and it is going to be locked in here.
Okay, please, Megan, just go Lissandra at this point, because you really need some sort of easy, accessible CC to set up your Belveth here. And jungle mid synergy has always been such a strong thing. Lissandra does great into Ahri as well, so really hoping that we do see that come through from AXZ.
Well,
thank you.
There we are. There we are. Oh, RMC, hey, you're not going mad. They lock it in. It's good stuff. So, looking a bit more holistically at these compositions, CGA side, you've got stuff like the Nautilus, stuff like the Wukong, stuff like the Ahri, which can spike a little bit earlier in the mid game, but then once we hit later on, these GP barrels and this Aphelios are going to be pumping out a lot of damage.
Yeah, and I think CGA just drafted really standard here, nothing too shocking. Like you mentioned, strong skilling, strong team fighting to come through, as well as pick potential from the Ahri. It's Kaito's most played champion at this point. Yeah, it's just a really safe pickup here. And for CGA, I think this plays towards their win condition. We said that pound for pound, they're probably better than AXZ in their roles. So there's no need for them to shake things up and just play something safe and scaling. That's just the safest, most reliable way to win this one out.
But then on the side of AXZ, they've thrown a couple of curveballs. The Jinx definitely not something that we see a lot of the time. But then, of course, like as soon as that Belveth was locked in, we got all excited about that one. It's Swamp on a carry jungle, which is something we have been asking from AXZ for a while.
Yes, and I absolutely love it, because I think for AXZ, the thing that made me love this team originally was sort of the wacky picks and the things that they were willing to adapt on each patch here. It felt like they were willing to experiment here. And I'm glad to see that they're the first team in the LJL to pick up the Bel'Veth, because this is how you catch teams off guard. You pick these picks which maybe they're not as experienced with dealing with. And compositionally speaking as well, their comp is pretty solid. If you ignore the Bel'Veth here, and look at everything else, they've got a really strong team fighting comp. Gnar in the LJL has been a staple. Granted, yes, you've got to play around the Rage Bar quite a bit, but Yellow Yoshi has done a good job of that. You've got another sort of pseudo frontline good peel with Megumin's Lissandra, and I think the Lissandra really fits the playstyle that Megumin has it shown that he excels at in Spring, right? That more supportive utility style pick, and then you just set up for Sangchu here. So Swamp in this case just feels like that extra little bit of topping on top of an already solid composition.
It's looking good for AXIZ, but I'm sure that CGA want to flex their muscle as well. Game on as we are on to the Rift for the first matchup of the day. Crest Gaming Act here on the blue side versus AXIZ. Both teams tied for 6th place at the moment, looking to secure their 3rd win.
Okay, middle card. Now that we're in here, we should probably talk a little bit more about Bel'Veth, because I think a lot of people probably aren't as familiar with this champion. She's completely new, has only been enabled this last week and a half on patch 12.12 here competitively. And the way Bel'Veth kind of works here is people have described her as Master Yi 2.0. She basically scales up with kills. You know, she's very strong as a carry, really fast attack speed here. But one of the reasons why I think she's better and actually viable competitively is her E. Basically, it gives her damage reduction, 70% damage reduction for a little bit of time when she engages. So she can actually go and soak up the damage. And if you're not bursting her down, she will absolutely rip you to shreds. The other thing is her ultimate as well. Basically, on champion kills or on Herald or Baron kills, she gets Coral Voids. What?
RMC, early action is what we wanted to see from CGA. Azuka is going to be forced to flash away, but the dredge line follows. The ignite drops them low. And Nema with first blood.
What? What team is this here, middle card? Consider the level 2 gank? You know what? You have been calling for early proactive action. This is early proactive action. And I just love that they did this as well. Now they get to invade onto Swamp, and we touch on Bel'Veth's strength. One of the things that we didn't quite touch on is that she needs a bit of time to scale here. And early on, it's a little bit risky to try and fight the enemy jungler.
Yeah, Nema walking in there with the hook. Hybrid is here as well. Sangchu starting to move over. This blue buff is getting very, very low. I'm not sure if CJ want to fight this. Kasina's going to go in, but he gets rooted up by the choppers and he forced to flash back. Nema will have to do the same as here comes Megaman over the wall. It was good, but it's even better for AXIZ.
And this is worrying here, because now you've given kills over to Swamp and Megaman here. That jungle mid duo we're talking about. And already Megaman has that counter matchup. Already Swamp is going to scale a little bit better than that Wukong here. And it started so well, middle caught. Kassin, you know, gets the early gank here. And the problem is when he kind of decides to go for the invade, he's a little bit low on health after going for that. And that comes off that turret shot that Kassin ends up taking in order to secure that early kill. The play, it's good here. But when he steps up, takes that extra turret shot, which he kind of didn't need to because Hybrid had the range, it puts him low enough that in that resulting 3v3, AXIZ had the advantage once Azuka actually got back to lane.
And whilst you did get that early kill, it's first blood onto a Nautilus, which I'm sure Nema's going to be happy with that, but there's 4 people on CGA that would much rather that gold was on their side. And now we're seeing Swamp playing up, going for a little bit of an invade into the Wukong's jungle. Doesn't clear particularly fast, especially on 12.12, where that clear speed has been reduced. So Swamp is able to secure a couple of these camps. He can really get away with this Bel'Veth in the jungle.
Oh, and that was a little bit sloppy from Swamp, unfortunately. Actually does get spotted by the minion line going for the Krugs there. So he's going to get chased off by Nema. Hey, that's that early kill coming in for Nema, right? And here's the blue buff take as well. Kassin does manage to secure the blue buff, which is pretty important because it means that Swamp doesn't get the experience from that. But the problem is the kills make it an issue, and Swamp getting the kills is a bigger problem. Mid lane as well, Megumin being able to roam out is part of the problem. And this is why I was so happy when we saw that Lissandra R5 come through, because now you get that shove that can match that RE as well. And it's showing already. Now Swamp gets to play a little bit more aggressively, and Kassin can't actually look to invade. Even by doing this right now, middle card, I think Kasin's just playing with fire. Why are you playing so far up right now when there's no camps to take in that enemy jungle? And you see Ozuka over there.
Yeah, and it's not really like Kasin has anything that he can play towards in terms of a lane. So this Drake startup feels like more of a default, more of a, well, there's nothing else that I can do on the map, so I might as well take Infernal Drake. You're going to be happy with the bonus AD and AP, although I'm sure that the lanes would probably prefer the kills going their way.
Yeah, a lot of times, especially in the current meta, we've seen Herald be the favorite thing. A lot of teams favor tempo because it's getting really low. Hasmite will be able to secure that. Yeah, and you're right. This is more just Kasin saying, I've got nothing to do. My bot side was completely cleared by Swamp as well. Another consequence of that bot side invade. And for AXIZ, they don't care. AXIZ is some of the longest game times, average game times. So they don't really care about giving up that early Drake here. If anything, they'll just stack it up, you know, later on, starting at that third Drake. They're more focus on trying to get all their carries ahead, getting Swamp ahead in terms of experience, in terms of camps, and making sure that Sangshu can soak as much as possible. I mean, look at Sangshu, even picking up the early call there to continue investing in scaling.
Well, I mean, when you've got a Tom Kench beside you, you can go for something a little bit more selfish, a little bit greedier in terms of your item builds, because especially once that level 6 hits and Azuka gets access to that Devour, it becomes so difficult for you to actually kill Sanctu in this 2v2.
Yeah, and because of that, you're not too worried about how the early lane goes, right? Just as long as you can farm up, as long as you don't get frozen out. And considering that, you know, your mid jungle duo are doing pretty well, you're not worried about getting frozen out either. If that happens, you just call for jungle pressure. You just call for a mid roam to come down and punish that. And if anything, it's really up to CGA here to try and reclaim lost ground. Kasin could potentially look for another bot side gank if he wants here. He would probably have to try and sneak through lane though for maximal effect, and maybe just go in and soak till level 6, because I feel like Kasin right now really needs that Cyclone to become highly effective.
Yeah, ganking level 5 on Wukong, you're not at that maximum effectiveness, and you're honestly just going to be wasting time if you go for a gank that you would make work at level 6, and if you don't make it work when you're level 5, it's going to feel bad for you. We are seeing AXIZ cheating towards the top side. Nap has his flash available as well as the remove Scurvy, so it's been quite ambitious to actually go for a kill here. Yellow Yoshi is stacking up the Mega Gnar, the GP able to walk away without too much trouble, as we're seeing a 2v2 in the box side. Sanctu just exploded before Azuka could save him. Oh, the time catch provides safety, but you need a couple more levels before that ultimate's available.
Exactly, middle card. Level 6 is that big marker there. Yep. Unfortunately, they're only level 4, so really well played from Hybrid and Nema to punish that early. Didn't even need the jungle pressure here, and that's precisely what AXIZ didn't want to see. And with that, CGA have finally pulled themselves into the lead here, and with that as well, now Kasin doesn't have to go down to this bot side as much, can instead look to punish Yellow Yoshi. And actually in the top lane, Wukong was one of the counter matchups into Gnar, because then you get to gap close on Mini Gnar, and Mini Gnar very vulnerable to high burst damage here.
Well, it does appear that CGA aren't quite going to be able to contest that Herald, as we get a little bit of a look in on what happens in this bot lane. It's just Nema connecting with a hook. Yeah,
it's just that simple. They knew that they burnt the flash earlier, much earlier in those fights. And so, yeah, Sangshu just needs to be more respectful pretty much positionally. Now, Swamp picking this up as Bel'Veth, we do need to talk about that, because we're talking about the Void Corals, right? Swamp as Bel'Veth. When you kill a champion, they drop Void Corals. When you kill Herald or Baron, you drop Enhanced Void Corals. And what that does is when Swamp ults later on, any minions around them that dies will become sort of voidlings for them to push with, which makes them very dangerous.
Oh no, Azuka, you can't walk there.
Oh,
Cyclone used from Kasin, the flash over the wall, the chase, the follow through, and it's Nema securing his second kill of the game. CGA, they had a little bit of a slip up earlier, but now they're starting to feel themselves.
And Azuka's still level 4 middle cards and set even further behind. Sangshu is 6 now, and for CGA, this bot lane is well and truly won. They can start diving if they want, and that's why they're calling Kaito down. Kaito is spotted here.
No. Oh no! Sangshu flashes away under the tower, but that's not going to save your life, mate. You would have preferred to save the summoner spell, as Hybrid secures the kill. Kaito will be forced to flash away by Swamp, but still, it's CGA benefiting off the proactive plays.
And they had full vision. We just said they had vision on Kaito's rotate down to the bot side. Sangchu just needs to ditch here. And the sick part is CGA on that dive really only burnt the Spirit Rush from Kaito. And that was used defensively to get out of range. So they can look to repeat this over and over and over again. And even when Ozuka hits 6, he's still probably going to be low enough in terms of levels that CGA should still continue to win this lane.
Kaito being engaged onto by Megaman is going to cleanse out of the Frozen Tomb. So 3-minute window that AXIZ can visit that mid lane where the RE going to be a little bit more vulnerable. Swamp once again stealing away some cancer because Sin has built himself a pretty sizable lead in terms of those jungle CS monsters.
Yeah, because while Kassin has been ganking bot side, has been looking to make action happen, Swamp's just been power farming all you want. And again, when you're a carry, that's all you need to do. Kassin, once again, the bot side.
Oh no, the Chomper's actually buying some time, but not enough for Azuka. Yep. It's just the same play over and over again. AXIZ summoning the Herald in this mid lane will be able to take first brick. So we're seeing the resources really split across the map. Hybrid, the one getting fed for CGA, but a lot of the gold for AXIZ going into Swamp's hands.
Yeah, and we're seeing CGA once again go to that dragon here, pick that one up. And honestly, I think for AXIZ, they're fine with what's happening here. Yes, Sangchu and Ozuka are just kind of getting picked on, kind of getting bullied here, but it's not the end of the world. And for CGA, I think they're also kind of okay with this. Yes, they do lose first turret, but look at Sangchu again. This is a 1v1. There's no supports involved.
Oh my crikey, RMC. That's a lot of damage. And, wanted to see proactivity out of Hybrid. Turns out all you need to do is just build Gale Force, and that means that you can play any champion like Kai'Sa.
Kind of. I mean, just look at the item discrepancy, right? Middle God it's not just the Gale Force for Hybrid. It's the lack of anything for Sangchu, because you went with that early call here, and Ozuka is still not level 6, so you continue just bullying them out over and over again. Swamp hunting for this one here, 2 levels down.
Yeah, has been knocked up there. Oh, actually, it's a lot of damage being traded back by the Velvet as Kassin is going to be joining the fray, going on to Swamp and takes them out. Nap is still alive, fighting up with Yellow. Yoshi's got much damage! Oh, what a masterclass from CJ in the top side.
To be honest, this is one of my big concerns with AXIZ so far, has been how their top side has been played. Yellow Yoshi has been struggling mechanically, and even in that fight, he didn't get a chance to go mega. It feels like the call was a little bit off. Like Swamp saying, okay, I'm going in. And she's like, I'll be right there. I'll be right there. Well, you weren't. The enemy, CGA, is the one who actually responds first. Kassin getting to that fight first. And even worse is Yellow Yoshi can't even follow up, can't even find the kill. That's a massive problem. And Swamp going in here, actually 2 levels down, almost finds the kill. To me, that's already nuts. And that talks about the power of Bel'Veth and why I like her so much and think she's viable. But yeah, in a 2v1, CC is her hardest counter. And watch Yellow Yoshi here. That rage bar is not even close at the end of the day. He just doesn't get a chance to go mega, just gets completely played out. And now Nap and Kassin on this top side advantage. Hybrid and Emma, bot side at advantage. CGA, even in the mid lane, they're not too worried. Sure, Megumin's winning, but Kaito is still keeping up in farm. And Ari will always have some sort of utility with the risk of diving your backline.
That's the crucial thing for me, is that we saw AXIZ establish a little bit of an early advantage on Swamp on this top side, and the question was, well, how much can CJ's bot side carry against the top side of AXIZ? Now that top lane has sort of been equalized to a certain extent, it means that the strength that Hybrid currently has on this Aphelios is really going to be accentuated, walking into lane, potentially baiting Sangchu and Azuka in a little bit.
I'm at this point, middle court. I see Kassin bot, and I just get worried for AXIZ right away here. But look at the collapse from AXIZ here. Swamp is coming, Megumin's coming.
Yeah, Nema flashed back away from Azuka, but they're able to re-engage onto the Tahm Kench. Not particularly tanky at this stage of the game, and Megumin not able to follow up. Double knockup for the Cyclone as Kassin is going in once again. This is the CGA that we love to see, as Swamp does get that Void Coral, but will still go down. Kaito popping himself over the wall with the Orb of Deception as well. Dive may be on the wave, not there quite yet, as Hybrid ushering that one in. The charm going just wise as Megaman is going to pop into the Frozen to buy some time. Tower shot's actually onto Hybrid. That's a reset for Sangchu. The Frozen Fall will chase down Kassin. Kaito maybe just enough to dissuade the aggression. CGA can turn around with some burst here onto Megamin. They're going to do it. The cannon barrage as well as Sanctu forced to run away. Flash available for Kaito with the Q as well. The autos, the W to finish it off.
CGA play that so well, and let's not forget, AXIZ had first rotate onto that fight here, and now, unfortunately, despite the win, because CGA had such an extended fight here, AXIZ are the ones who are coming back in here, will be able to reset that wave and shove, but this feels like the problem for AXIZ. Middle caught over and over again, slight mistakes, slight inability to execute is costing them here, and if we look at how this starts out, I want to focus on the bot side. Hybrid and Nema are winning out the 2v2 so hard. So despite the fact that AXIZ had Megamin and Swamp coming down first, it doesn't matter. And Swamp getting caught out was just kind of the icing on the cake, as it were, because suddenly you're losing the bot side, you're losing the other 2v2, and huge props to Megamin and Sanctu for this particular play under turret. The Frozen Tomb from Megamin being held for so long enables them to survive on this play. And the follow-up here, I honestly thought this should have gone a lot where Sanctu has flash and you've got Kraken Slayer. I actually expected Sanctu just flash and find kills.
Oh, flash hook in the mid side. Hybrid forced to dash back as Sanctu is so low. One more auto, but he is just in time from Azuka. He's not going to be able to get his AD carry away. His Swamp is dead. The Cyclone comes through. 3 kills for CGA. They are looking clean.
Look at the KDA of Kassin and Hybrid here, middle caught. 4-1 and 8 and 5-1 and 4. You can't fight that in equal numbers, and AXIZ needs to know when to respect that. Now, Megamin? There's no Cyclone.
No. It keeps happening. No Cyclone available, so Lissandra can escape under the tower. But RMC, it feels like I'm watching a completely different CGA this game.
Yeah, this is what happened with Roscoe Jesters, it feels like, on day 6, where suddenly they're playing proactively and they look absolutely amazing. This was exactly what you had asked for, middle caught, and CGA is delivering. They're not sitting back, they're not scaling. Yes, they picked the Aphelios, but their Aphelios is well ahead of the curve here, and Kassin has been an absolute beast and monster here. And it's really facilitated as well by the fact that Nemo is utterly fearless. This was a 2v3 to start here, and CGA had vision of all those members, but because Hybrid's so far ahead, Nema is not afraid to just say, okay, I'm going to pull the trigger. Even if I die here, we get 3 kills, and Hybrid, you're so far ahead that that's fine. You're the win con, not me.
And picking up that Drake whilst we were in the replay, I believe, holy moly, leads across the map. That GP and that Aphelios are in disgusting positions, and now CGA, they're going to have an Ocean Soul in a few minutes' time, and whilst AXIZ aren't massively behind in terms of the gold, they're going to have to answer some really difficult questions in the next few minutes.
Yeah, like, what are you going to do, AXIZ? I think that's the most difficult question right now. Anytime they've tried to be proactive. Exactly. Forget winning the game. I'm just worried. Like, my first question is, what are you going to do to stay in the game as it stands? Because all your proactivity hasn't panned out, right? You lost the bot lane already, which was fine. You chose to sack it for mid and top, but top didn't pan out. And now Megamin isn't doing terribly well as well. Sure, you're up 10 CS, but you're down, what is that, 3 assists right now? You're down control, and you're funneling gold into Megamin. This isn't one of those late game carries like the Azir, like the Corki that we've seen from Megamin before. This is the Lissandra. This is the utility pick. You're running Everfrost, not the Andres either. So, AXIZ, what are you doing here? You need to continue funneling gold towards Swamp and Sanctu instead.
The Lissandra is an enabler. An enabler with lots of gold doesn't enable much better than an enabler without a lot of gold. I'm sure Sanctu would very much appreciate being able to take down that bot lane tower. I mean, isolation spikes have come through for AXIZ for a little bit. That Kraken Slayer has been in Swamp's pocket for a while. Same for the Kraken Slayer on Sanctu. Hold that thought. We're having another fight in the mid lane. CGA willing to pull the trigger, and AXIZ, they cannot respond. Azuka going down for the 6th time this game.
Okay, that one's not Azuka's fault. Like, Sanctu and Azuka weren't really that far out of position there. Both of them were out. Azuka had to die to keep Sanctu alive. But look at this Herald being dropped now. Oh, Kassin gets stopped.
Ooh, that dredge line was so close from Nema. Second charge going to come through from the Herald. 19 minutes on the board. 4,000 gold advantage for CGA so far. And AXIZ, honestly, look lost. I think maybe once you get a couple items on Swamp on Sanctuary, you can look for something. But the fact that Megamin isn't willing to Frozen Claw into a Nautilus, I think really just speaks to how poorly this game has gone for AXIZ already.
To be fair, I'm glad Megamin didn't try.
I mean, I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad he didn't RMC. But
yeah.
I think in a game state that is a bit more favorable for AXIZ, you're absolutely taking that claw. You're going in, you're out in the Nautilus, you try and take them out, but you don't have the freedom, you don't have the safety to make plays like that.
No, you don't. The moment you see anybody near that Nautilus, as AXIZ, you're kind of backing off. And the other thing is what we touched on, the fact that, hey, Megamin's being funneled gold, but you're an enabler. You need somebody to follow up. Where was Swamp? Where was Sangshu? They weren't in position to follow up here. And middle call, there's one person I feel like we haven't focused on for CGA in quite a while, and that is Nap on this GP. We've been touching on Kaito, on Hybrid, on Kasin, on Nema. Well, what happens when Nap starts joining the fight? Nap has been great with those cannon barrages to really, well, enable or to be that utility pick to slow people down, to corral them, pardon me, into the rest of CGA. But GP is a ticking time bomb. And with that Trinity Force, with that Collector as well, I kind of want to see Nap just one-shot people in a lot of these team fights coming up.
I think you're probably going to see that RMC. Because you don't really have a massive tank line here for AXIZ. It is going to be that Trinity Force which indexes quite well into the 1v1 matchup, but can't be that massive tank, especially as far behind as Yellow Yoshi is at the moment. And then Azuka?
Oh.
Megamin? It's not great.
Yeah, I mean, Yellow Yoshi did build the Warden's Mill, so at least he should be able to hold the 1v1 in terms of the damage, though he will probably struggle into the push. But yeah, you're right, everybody else is really
no, no, you're not allowed to do that, mate. That's not possible. Megamin diving in there, knocked up with a Cyclone, exploded, does go into that Zonya's only one backed with the oh my god! An explosion of damage from Hybrid as the health bars disappear from AXIZ. Clean ace for CGA.
Well, we asked and CGA delivered. There you go. That's Nap one-shotting people into these fights. And for AXIZ, this is why I've kind of lost faith in them a lot, middle call. It's been their engages coming through. And Ozuka, again, why are you looking for that engage right there? You knew there were multiple members. Even if you go in, you're dead here, pretty much. Okay, so they get the vision on Nema. They know Nap is in the area. They saw Hybrid pushing mid. Those three members alone means that you don't win this 4v3. And sure enough, Ozuka goes in. And here's the disgusting part. Ozuka isn't even the one dying here. He dies to the cannon barrage and barrels incidentally. So you baited your entire team in and then die by accident. This is a massive problem. And you cannot be making plays like that when you're already so far behind.
That was pretty disgusting, RMC. Not gonna lie.
Yep.
Still recovering from that as AXIZ have recovered. They've left the fountain. They've made their way into the river. They didn't have a fun time the last time that they were here. And I can't imagine they're going to be enjoying it this time around. Stepping up quite proactively. But if someone oversteps, if one person is a little bit too far forward, Nema going to throw out that hook and health bars are going to be evaporated pretty rapid.
This is a win for AXIZ, though, the longer they can hold them here, because CGA did pick up Baron. Bot side, the fight has already started.
Yeah, Megamin getting played onto is going to take that claw into the pit, but Kaito's able to follow them through. Kasin actually knocked away, not quite able to get the engages. It's a 1-for-1 so far. And Swamp picking up that Void Carol is able to reset, but there's the hook. There's the engage. There's Azuka going down. And now CGA just keep going. Megamin gets shot in the back of the head by Nap. CGA claim the Drake's soul. They're going to be taking some structures in this mid side.
That wasn't even a barrel, middle card. He just walked up and executed Megamin with a pistol to the head. I mean, bro, sounds like a semi-automatic. That was just a single shot to the back of the head. That was absolutely brutal. And I was just praising AXIZ because the longer you stall this out, the better, right? There is Baron buff in play for CGA here. And so if you're just sitting at Dragon, you're not utilizing that. The initial fight isn't too bad as well for AXIZ. They get the pick. The problem, though, is so what if you killed one person? It doesn't really matter. There's still so much damage. There's still so much engage. And yeah, there we go. That's the execution coming through from Nap. I want to highlight, too, in that fight that second phase of the fight, Nap's cannon barrage was used for damage. But if they had just dropped it as an engage, they don't even need Nema to land the hook, honestly. If they just drop the cannon barrage and walk at you, AXIZ would still get wiped anyhow.
And we're starting to see carry Nap come online. So much in the early stages of this game was about Hybrid and Kassin in that bot lane, and you even touched just now on how we haven't been talking about Nap. Well, currently 7-0-6, 3 items completed on the GP. I think maybe he's listening to the broadcast and wanted some people to take a bit more notice of him.
True. And, we had said as well on the desk that CGA, they've been trying to play through Nap, but it feels like giving Nap those early resources doesn't always pan out. I think this is a much better way to get carry Nap online. Give Nap a scaling pick, get Hybrid and Nema so far ahead that suddenly the enemy team has to focus the bot side. They forget about Nap, and Nap, you get to rejoin the game at 20 minutes and one-shot people. I think that is a much better game plan blueprint for CGA to play with.
Hey, it feels pretty good. It's been looking pretty good so far in this game as Crest Gaming Act have accrued themselves a 9,000 gold advantage and that Ocean Drake buff as well. So Rift really is their oyster at the moment. AXIZ still have a fair few structures to their name, and the Jinx provides pretty decent wave clear. So I think CGA need a couple of picks before they can really get the siege going.
I think they can actually dive this middle card, especially if they see Yellow Yoshi in any other lane.
I think it's technically a pick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, my life. Well, maybe we see that here as bot lane tower. Here's where most of the pressure is going. CGA playing actually on all 3 lanes at the moment. Hybrid posted up in that mid-side. Nap just dancing around the top quadrant of the map. Doesn't want to overextend too much. And with that inner tower falling in the bot lane, there is only 1 structure remaining for AXIZ outside of their own base. I don't think Nap's going to be able to get it anytime soon with Swamp in the area.
I'm kind of worried for Swamp and Yellow Yoshi here.
This is quite risky from Swamp. 4 levels down on the GP, but so much damage regardless. This is not going to be a 1v2 coming through. That's a big shutdown. But the rest of CGA are here. Kassin is missing. This is a 4v3, and that's a huge lock-up coming through. Swamp is being forced back slowly as Hybrid, trying to do as much damage as he can, but already the Nautilus taken out. Here comes Kassin, diving into the fight, breaking up the backline, causing chaos! As Sangchu goes down, and it looked good for AXIZ for but a moment. But as CGA get all 5 members in the fight, it all goes disastrously wrong for the Narble squad.
Yeah, and Swamp is doing a lot of damage here, middle card, but Hybrid's just doing more here.
Yeah.
Sure, it's a 3v5, but honestly, unless AXIZ can collapse and kill Hybrid immediately, I don't care how many people we've got on the table. Hybrid is full health after that fight with that Bloodthirster picked up as well. I hope we get a replay because I want to highlight Hybrid's positioning throughout the entire fight. Thank you. The production can hear me even if AXIZ can't hear. And the pick onto Nap is great. I did not expect Swamp to actually do that much damage, but I wanted to point out that look for a second that Swamp almost actually goes down. It is kind of sketchy, and if Yellow Yoshi didn't go Mega right there, they wouldn't have had the CC to do it. Now watch Hybrid in this fight here, because he gets kind of low, but then he now sits in that Krug alcove, and AXIZ can't actually get in range, so he's able to output damage. And right here, this critical flash to save him is what changes everything, because AXIZ desperately needed to gap close. They get the gap close, Flash gets him out, and the moment that happens, CGA just cleans house for the rest of the fight. So for AXIZ, the game plan is really simple in teamfights right now. It's kill Hybrid. It's easy to say, though, but very, very hard to execute when you consider what tools they have.
Because Hybrid is this player that just loves standing right on the edge. As Swamp currently standing on the edge of life is going to be forced to flash away as Ozaka dead again. Nat flashes, casts his gun, bang, you are dead.
I don't know if I'm loving to watch the barrels, getting multi-crits off more, or if I just love Nat single-shotting, with the pistol, just executing people on the back.
Hey, it's playing old school GP, baby. Old school GP.
Oh, yeah. And it's working. You can't argue with that. Second Baron for CGA here. They've already broken the base open. Mid inhibitor is exposed. Elder coming up in 30 seconds as well. CGA, you set the rifts, their oyster. Well, now it's time to shuck it here because they can go wherever they want in AXIZ. AXIZ are left scrambling. You don't know where CGA want to go. If you fight for Elder and they go for base, game ends. If you defend base and they get Elder, they push in, game ends. AXIZ, what you gonna do?
It's a good start here from Megaman, recognizing that this Cassandra needs to flank in order to be useful, but now going to be spotted out by Kaito, and, well, I mean, this just really illustrates the lead that CGA have. AXIZ have kind of been forced out of this river without CGA actually pushing them away, and they're going, hold on, we don't care too much about this Elder Drake. We're just going to try and end the game. This is risky. If AXIZ take this, they could really flip this one on its head. It's going low very quickly. Already 5,000 gold. CGA are giving up Elder Drake in a game that they are winning. Secured for AXIZ, secured for Bel'Veth, as Zemra is going to be going low and popping down. Hybrid slammed into the wall as AXIZ. They need to get on top of this.
Oh no.
Before Nap ends the damn game. Yellow Yoshi is charmed. Hybrid buying as much time as possible. Kassin going over wall is going to be interrupting the recall from Megamin. That's big. As Nap takes down the Nexus towers. I thought CGA flipped it. They're just 200 IQ. You can't get back in time. And Nap destroys the Nexus.
Oh my goodness, Middlecott. It's to me hilarious also because in Twitch chat here we had Kashka saying surely this game is unthrowable, and Mas1 was, if it was any other team, yes. And when I watched how that game ended, I thought CGA threw it at the last second there. We had just said, look, you can either go for Elder or you can go for Nexus. They got greedy and went for both. And I was just like, no, surely not. Not like this, Middlecott. If they weren't as ahead as they were, they could have thrown that game right there.
I love that. You play 30 minutes of immaculate, fast-paced League of Legends, not giving AXIZ any hope of getting back into the game, and then if that doesn't kill the Nexus at the end there, maybe it looks a lot worse for them. But fundamentally, CGA won that game.
Yeah, that's true.
We're going to go to a break and talk about it more later.
Well, what a way to kick off this 7th day. We talked about this last round robin being explosive. It's definitely started that way. And all I've got to say, really, is are we sleeping on Nap?
Maybe. Well, we were sleeping on Nap for about, like, 20 minutes of that game, and then he turns around just one-shots half of AXIZ, so, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's in the name, Middlecott. We were just taking a nap on Nap, and 20 minutes, perfect timing.
Yeah, I decided to look up what parlay actually means in the dictionary, and this is the definition, okay?
Okay.
A conference between opposing sides in a dispute, especially a discussion of terms for an armist. That's not what the Gangplank queue looked like.
No.
That wasn't a discussion. It wasn't even. There was no chance of getting close there. It was just, as Middlecott said, bruh. But obviously, it was a lot less shots because it's a single shot pistol. But we'll remove that. I like the sound effect.
Wait, hold up. I just like to say, I thought it was a very persuasive argument for the parlay there. I mean, after seeing that, I certainly want to come to like, I don't want to fight that. I'd come in, for an armrest.
It definitely was a strong performance from that, especially on the gangplank. And I think all in all, a pretty good performance for CGA. Maybe bar the last couple of minutes, but let's get into the draft. Seconds. I think we have a lower third for the draft because I will say I think both teams actually drafted pretty well today. We've sometimes had discussions about teams not necessarily hitting, or I guess getting the vibe,
Yeah.
But this time, I think they did. And let's talk about CGA first because they also did win. We wanted to see Nap, if he can carry, put him on the gangplank.
Yeah, and I think like RMC alluded to, well, it spoke of in the cast, it was less playing towards Nap to be the carry, more putting him something that is going to scale anyway, and then getting to that point in the game without having given up massive advantages. And then, I mean, we saw for ourselves like how much damage he was putting down with those barrels and with those crits from the parlay as well.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side, AXIZ also understood the assignment. I think that they met the vibe check, especially Megaman. I talked about not liking the Lissandra pick before, but admittedly, into this comp, I really did like it. I do agree with what RMC was saying about Carrot setting up for Belveth. I talked about Belveth last stream, I believe, asking what people thought of Belveth. RMC, now that we've finally seen it played, what are your thoughts on this pick?
I stand by my thoughts from last day as well, from day 6. I think Belveth has her place in competitive. But I think we saw moments of that from Swamp, especially onto Nap as well. Late game, that one fight we saw topside where it looked like AXIZ was winning till Hybrid showed up. Again, Swamp is doing a lot of damage. The Belveth pick kind of works. I think AXIZ draft was perfectly fine. It just comes down to execution being the bigger issue. And I also say this, it wasn't Swamp's Belveth execution that was the issue either for AXIZ.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it was pretty nicely played. I think they had a nice lead at the start as well. They almost managed to convert, but then CJ really started coming through all guns blazing. The one last thing I really want to talk about, and I do feel a little bit bad about bringing this one up because I don't want to be flaming players, but has Azuka's over-aggression caused AXIZ a lot of problems? Because we felt it with the Leona in that last series. Today on the Tam Kench, still once again overstepping the mark. RMC, do you feel like this is a problem that AXIZ is having? And actually, if they maybe chilled out a little bit, took a bit of a relaxing time, maybe they'd have a better opportunity.
So like you said, J-Real, we don't want to flame any players, right? And the other thing too, we don't know who makes the calls. All we see is Ozuka being the one to kind of faceplant into the fight. But for all we know, it could be somebody else calling like, hey, engage right now, and we're looking for this. But right now, it does look like an issue here, especially the way AXIZ have been engaging without proper vision and without really thinking about, do we win this fight? It feels like they're saying, okay, if all things were equal, we win this, so pull the trigger. Things aren't equal a lot of the time. You keep picking fights into strong players. In this game, it was Hybrid specifically. They kept trying to fight Hybrid. And if you're going to fight Hybrid, get the pick on Hybrid. If you're getting on Nema, we don't care if you kill Nema. Hybrid will kill everybody else. And I think that's the big problem we're having. So is it Ozuka? Maybe. The other player I think also who underperformed a bit this game was Yellow Yoshi on the Gnar, unfortunately. We saw the way, CGA want to play for bot side, and AXIZ were like, okay, we'll answer with top mid. I think that was the right call, but the top ganks didn't quite materialize, and in fact, actually ended up setting AXIZ a little bit behind in that early to mid game.
Indeed. Well, that has been game number 1. We will be taking a break right now, and then we'll be coming back for game number 2. You do not want to miss any of today's action. If you're in work, just say that you're sick. You want to make sure you're here for these games. Any costs, okay? It's the end of day. It's the end of the first round robin. Be here. Okay, we're going to go for a short break, and we'll see you soon.